Hey everyone, today I wanted to take a chance to show you guys how to do some undercuts around the bottom of the trigger guard on Glocks. Now this is my Glock 19. This has been my EDC handgun for I don't even know how long now. I'm sure you guys may have seen this in other videos, but anyway, the only thing that I've been neglecting to do to it for a long time is to undercut the trigger guard. I've done it on pretty much all of my other Glocks at this point, to include my Glock 21, which I just did the video on scalloping the mag release, so check out that video. But as you can see, obviously I've undercut the trigger guard there, so that's something that I've wanted to do. So basically at this point I'm going to show you guys exactly what process I use in order to undercut that trigger guard. Now one of the first things I'm going to be using is a Dremel. You know, a lot of people have done some significant damage to their firearms with Dremels before, so I highly encourage, before you actually take one of these to an actual firearm, do your due diligence, learn how to actually do it properly, and just above everything else be absolutely as careful as you can. But the way I'm going to start out is obviously by taking off some of the components that I have on here now, namely the actual magazine release, because if I don't take off that magazine release when I'm going around with a sanding drum, I could very easily start sanding away at that mag release, which I don't want to do in this case. I'm obviously going to also take off my light here, so go ahead and do that. Alright, so as you can see, got the magazine release out. Really, for the most part, all I'm going to be doing here is taking the sanding drum and just rounding this section out. You know, a lot of people do complain about some knuckle issues with this digging into their knuckle, so I'm going to round this out. I may also reposition my lights just so you can kind of see it a little bit better, but I'll go ahead and get set up and then get started. Alright, so I'm going to take my coarse sanding drum and basically just work my way around here and hopefully keep it in a position where you guys can see it well enough. So what I typically do is pretty frequently I'll just do kind of test fits, see how it actually fits in my hand, and I can already tell there's a huge improvement. You don't have that jagged edge there sticking into your knuckle, but I still might just open it up a little bit more. Got a little bit of fat fingers myself, so I might just open up that just to kind of help get my hand a little bit higher up on that grip. And you'll notice also there's a lot of places where you get some of this the shavings kind of bunching up on the end. Typically what I'll do is I'll really just kind of leave those until the end and then either take kind of some medium grit sandpaper and finish that off, or I'll even take like a razor blade, cut it off, and then again polish it up with some medium grit sandpaper. But at this point I've taken off most of the material that I want in the big areas, so I'm going to switch over to a finer sanding drum, not necessarily a fine, more of a medium, just to kind of polish it up, get really the shaping that I want in there, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so now that I've gone over it with the medium drum, I'm just going to again do a nice little field test, and again, even at this point, it's just a huge improvement to the point where I don't even necessarily think I'm going to do any more from here other than finish off where those shavings were sticking out. But I mean, really, it's not that complicated. The biggest thing is getting over the fact that you're taking a Dremel to a firearm. Once you get past that, and once you get a little bit of practice under your belt, then it's really not that complicated of a process. I mean, I know I could do more. I typically don't like to make that gap as little as I can. You know, I know it looks cool, but it's not necessarily what I'm in it for. So again, this is really all I think I'm going to do to this. I may in the future undercut the trigger guard for my support hand, mostly because it looks cool, not necessarily because it actually adds too much more function. But I mean, looking cool is half the battle when it comes to being tactical. So basically what I'm just going to do now is polish up with some sandpaper, and then I'll pretty much be good. So in order to polish up, basically what I'm just going to do is to get the contour, I'm going to take this super awesome Manly pencil here and just wrap some, I think this is 600 grit sandpaper. We'll see if this is going to be too fine. But just so I have the contour, I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in there and just try to clean up some of those edges where the shavings were trying to pop out on me. Alright, so I think really that's all I'm going to do to it, and it really didn't take that long. I mean, from the time I hit record to where I'm at now is right around 14 minutes. Now I could obviously spend a lot more time trying to polish this out, smooth this out, get it to reflect more of the finish out here, but really functionally this is all I need. And it's obviously going to smooth out with use, but I mean really it's a huge improvement. You don't have it digging into that knuckle there. You know, a lot of times we get people who, when I worked as a firearms instructor, we'd get people coming through with really sore knuckles at the end of the day of full shooting with a Glock, just because that cornered off edge would just dig into their finger. So this is a nice way to get rid of that. Now you could spend hundreds of dollars and send it out somewhere and deal with the FFL because this is the serialized item. Me personally, I'd rather just use a cheap Dremel and a little bit of time and effort and get something that I can say I did myself. So again, this is going to work for me, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this thing back together and put this right back into my EDC. Alright, so as you can see, got this thing back together. One thing I would recommend before, if you do this to one of your firearms, before you actually reintegrate it into your EDC, because you got all those little shavings going everywhere, I would just recommend cleaning it out, doing a nice full strip and cleaning, making sure none of these little particles got into anywhere too important. Now, Glocks are going to probably run anyway, but again, just a good precaution. So that's probably what's next on the table for this, but as always, I hope you were able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.